So, just as a kind of a curiosity for me, how many of you were here last Sunday? Okay, so, and how many were you not here? Okay, yeah. I want to then just kind of give a brief overview of what we went over last Sunday. So it's just kind of maybe a little bit of a reminder, but also for those who were not here, just kind of like a real quick ramp up, all right, to where we have been. All right, so I'm going to start the slideshow from the beginning. How does that look? Oh, that looks pretty good. Oh, good. Okay. So the basic idea about nonviolent communication, all right, is not to change other people. It's not some kind of technique that, some special words that we say so that we can get other people to do what we want them to do. The objective is for us to establish relationships that are based on honesty, is based on empathy. Empathy as defined as an awareness of another person and also being able to kind of walk a little bit in their shoes in terms of what they may be feeling, what may be thinking, based upon, it could be based upon past experiences and the kind of stories that they may be telling themselves at a particular moment. So it is to establish relationships based on honesty and empathy that will eventually fulfill everybody's needs. And we will talk a lot more about needs today. Okay? All right. So this kind of nonviolent communication or compassionate communication is really for us to kind of train our attention, to keep our attention on a place that we are more likely to get what we're seeking. It is taking responsibility for our own thinking, the thoughts that we have, and also the feelings, and also our actions. So it's not a technique, it's not a formula, but it is a way of being. It's a way of living. And I like to call it kind of giving from my heart, right? So I also have to say, like I did last Sunday, is that I'm still kind of a beginner in this. And so I'm learning this even as I'm going along and even as I'm trying to explain all of this to you all. But you know how it is sometimes teaching something helps you to learn it even better? So thank you for allowing me to learn this even better while trying to explain it to you. Okay. So on your sheet, right, you see like the four foci, the four areas of compassionate communication. The first one that we talked about last Sunday was just observing, but without evaluation. So we observe things that are actually happening, right? In situations or in words or actions. And we notice with it that those words and actions are either enriching or not enriching our lives. But the trick is to be able to observe, to articulate that observation without introducing any judgment or evaluation. All right? And so, because many times when we combine observation with our evaluation, the other person hears it as criticism, that we're criticizing them. All right? And one of the examples that maybe we kind of talked about last Sunday, right, is when I see my son at night, he opens the refrigerator, he gets a snack, and he eats it, and then he leaves the plate and the food out on the counter. I'm sure that's never happened to any of you as parents, right? Yeah. And so my initial temptation is to say, Wesley, you are such a lazy bum. Right? Why can't you put back the food, the milk that you took out from the refrigerator and just put it back in? How hard can that be? Right? Now, I don't know. I tried that like dozens of times, And I don't know, maybe it's just the way that I said those words or whatever, but he never seems to respond very positively to the way that I tell him that, right? You're such a lazy bum. So I think I can already feel like, oh, I'm getting a little tense now because it's like a post-traumatic stress for me, right? But what I'm learning is to make an observation. Wesley, I've noticed that there is a plate that has crumbs, that this carton of milk is out on the table. And I've noticed that you took those out for a snack just 5 minutes ago. Just an observation. Okay? So, what I'd say is, it's like somebody taking a snapshot, and so that he can also see the same snapshot. I mean, it's not like he can deny that, yeah, there's a plate there or whatever. But it's also the way I say it. Right? It's from the heart, because I can say, there is a plate with crumbs on this table, right? That kind of energy implies criticism and judgment. And so much of it then is really kind of this noticing of what's going on within me, right? And then to be able to just kind of make that observation. All right. When I make that observation, can you feel the difference in terms of the energy? Yes, yes. So I think we as human beings, we're very in tune to that. It could be the very same words, but where we are in terms of our hearts has an effect in terms of then how the other person may or may not, because we can't control it, but how they may or may not receive those very same words. All right. Observation free of evaluation. So the second thing then is to be able to acknowledge our own feelings. And feelings are defined as really those sensations that we literally sensate, we feel within our bodies. I told you, like, I even sharing that story about my son, right, is stimulating something within me already. I'm feeling agitated. I'm feeling frustrated. And so, using that example again, I can tell Wesley, I'm feeling frustrated. But hopefully in a way, once again, from a heart that is at peace. I observe this, and this stimulates. It does not cause. This stimulates some feeling within me that I openly acknowledge and take responsibility for. I feel frustrated. As a matter of fact, if I'm honest with myself, I'm a little angry too. Okay? But at this point, you see, I'm not saying anything about Wesley. I'm just acknowledging what's going on within me. And so the free of thoughts is this. So many times we confuse feelings with our thoughts. And many times it goes like this. Instead of saying, I feel frustrated because I see this. I see the plate with crumbs and the milk carton on the table. I, many times say, I feel that you, Wesley, are a lazy bum. You see what I'm saying? So if you can substitute, I think, Wesley, that you are a lazy bum. Is really what I'm communicating. I just somehow substitute the word feel for it. But that's not really a feeling. That's a thinking. And once again, for whatever reason, my son is not really that open to me thinking of him in that way. It causes disconnection at that point. All right. So that's what we mean when we say feeling free of thoughts. It's not like, we kind of go around that we check our brains out, right? We're not thinking. No, not that at all. But it's at this particular phase, we're just in touch with our feelings. Okay. So I think I've gone over this. Feelings are bodily sensations to distinguish feelings from thoughts. So we take care of, we listen to ourselves. And so when we say, we feel like you don't respect me, Wesley, as your wise father. That didn't work either, right? Because that's a thinking of Wesley's, it's my kind of projection, my thinking upon him in terms of what he may be thinking about me, right? And it may be true, but it also may not be. But what I've observed is that when I use that kind of language, he's usually, he just rolls his eyes, and then I'm thinking, oh no, he thinks I'm whatever. And so you see how easy it is then to kind of get into this kind of vicious cycle, where we are kind of thinking or projecting our thoughts onto another person, and then we observe, a facial expression, and then we say, oh, that person now is thinking about this, about us. And all the time, there is no communication, right? Wesley, I observed that you kind of like shifted your eyes. Yeah? And he said, oh yeah, because there's a speck of dust here that I'm trying to get out. But all the while, I'm thinking, there he is. See, that's another sign that he is disrespectful. I feel disrespected. That's not a feeling. I'm thinking that he intends to disrespect me. It takes responsibility of my own thinking and not try to place it on somebody else. Okay? So, distinguish between what we feel and what we think we are. Distinguish between what we feel and what we think others are doing in terms of their reactions, in terms of their behaviors. All right? So I think that's kind of, so what other people say and do, they can stimulate feelings, absolutely. Stimulate feelings all the time. But they're not the cause. So here's an example. I think I might have shared last Sunday. So the observation is this. I am at a restaurant. I have an appointment with a friend, or actually, a potential client that I'm going to have conversations with. And it's supposed to be at 3 o'clock. And at 3:10, he does not show up. At 3:15, he's still not there. And so, what do you think? So I'm kind of feeling, my heart, boom, 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 I'm feeling a little frustrated. I'm feeling good, And, but that goes, there's a story behind it. If I'm feeling frustrated, many times I have a need to, I have the need for other people to take self-responsibility, to be on time. Maybe I have a need of, I have an appointment at 4, and so I'm thinking, I'm not going to have enough time, right? So then I get this feeling. But to say that this person being 15 minutes late caused this feeling might not necessarily be true, because in another circumstance is that while I'm at the coffee shop or whatever, I actually have an email that another client really needs from me at 4 o'clock. And so I could actually be relieved. I could feel relief that this person is late because it's giving me time to take care of this email and send it forth. Same situation. Person being 15 minutes late. And I, because of circumstances or whatever, it stimulates some feeling within me. The feeling can be frustration because some need of mine is not being met. Or the other feeling could be elation and relief because it's actually meeting another need that I have. Same situation. So there's not really a cause. It stimulates something. But the kind of feeling it may be really is predicated on whether certain needs of mine are being met or not met. And so kind of being in touch with our feelings. Feelings can communicate to us whether there are certain universal human needs that we have at that moment is either being met or not being met. All right, so does that kind of make sense? Now, you all have heard of Abraham Maslow, the psychologist. I mean, he was really breakthrough in terms of kind of universal human needs. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but so there's this hierarchy, right? There's a hierarchy of physiological needs of food and water and air for our survival, because without it, none of the other needs matter. We have to have that level of need met first. Then, once those needs are met, then we have safety needs, security, right? And having a job, having resources, having health. Then, once that is met, then we have this universal human need. Then it's not enough for us just to be by ourselves being healthy. We also have this need of human belonging, to be in a community together, to have support. It could be family, it could be friends. But to have family and friends is great. But then we have a higher level of need that, sometimes when I go to my family, it is like, I can only be there for like 24 hours because there's very little respect, there's very little recognition, there's very little freedom, right? And so it's the belonging is such, it's one thing. But then, it could be in the church, that then we also then have a basic human universal need. That there's respect among us, mutual respect. There is this sense of that we are recognized, maybe for our contributions, those kinds of things. And then finally is the need for self-actualization. That we can be fully who we are created to be. And so these are the kinds of human needs that Abraham Maslow kind of identified. And so I'm not a psychologist, I don't know all the details, and I'm sure there are kind of either critiques and criticisms and so forth. But this is just kind of a way to kind of get into and to understand these human needs, right? And so that's why on the sheet you will have that they're not kind of like ranked or kind of in a certain hierarchy, but it's helpful to understand and to see specifically what those human needs are. and the key is to acknowledge we have these needs, but it is free of strategies. Strategies are the things that we do in order to meet the need. So let's say I have a need for food and nutrition. Okay? That's something that I think we all can agree on. But have you ever been on a Friday night and my wife and I say, hey, let's go out to eat, right? Where do you want to go? I say, how about Mexican? And she goes, oh gosh, I don't know. I just had Mexican for lunch. I don't want that, right? And it's also, we have had heated conversations about what kind of food to eat, the strategy in order to meet both of our need of human nutrition. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so our needs can be met by a variety of strategies. But many times conflict and hurt occurs when we hold on to this particular strategy as the only one for me and for everybody else. So that's really, really important. Another is our need for status. And I think tied to that is our need for maybe recognition and so forth, right? And so some people, that need is met by other people acknowledging, you're so great. You're the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, well, thank you, or, bow before me, But we've also seen other human beings that really have objectively high status in society. And somehow that person's need for status is not predicated on other people kowtowing or bowing down or whatever. Maybe that need is somehow met almost internally. I think it's kind of like what Jesus was saying, Jesus, the very Son of God, coming down to earth as a baby and as a servant of all instead of being served. He is fully a human being. And his status, in fact, at least for me, theologically, is objectively higher than me. But every time when I'm doing communion, I'm reminded once again, the Son of God came and he washed his disciples' feet, which was such an act of servanthood, of one down instead of power over. Somehow that draws me to love Christ even more. Beautiful. So, is to acknowledge one's needs. We all have them. But to free ourselves from any particular strategy. And in so doing, I think that opens up space, or that creates the possibility of connection with another person. Needs are hard, I have to say, because many times, welcome, come on in, find a seat. Because sometimes I have in my head to acknowledge that I have a need for human connection means, I'm thinking that I'm needy. I don't want to be needy, right? Ooh, yeah. Because I don't, needy people kind of gives me the willies sometimes, okay? That happens when you're a pastor too, so whatever. But it is not needy to acknowledge and to take responsibility for one's own universal needs. But I have to confess that many times, for me, I feel uneasy because I think there's some vulnerability there. I have to kind of open up myself and to tell my spouse or my child, this is what I need. And not demand the child or my spouse to meet that need, but just to say, this is kind of where I am right now. But I found that many times to have the courage to kind of open up myself like that, and I try to do that sometimes in my sermons, is that other people begin to feel drawn to me even more. Even while I try to kind of push back, they're going to think I am whatever, fill in the blank, right? Needy, or weak, or whatever it may be. Inconfident, whatever it may be. So needs free of strategies, and to acknowledge one's need, which is not the same as being needy. As a matter of fact, a person who is needy is a person who is trying to get something from another person in order to build oneself up. A person who can acknowledge one's need is, I think, actually a very strong person and is aware that these are the things that I have capacity and capability and strengths. And frankly, these are the areas that I don't have a natural giftedness in, perhaps. And that's okay, because we're just fully embracing our humanity instead of living through life thinking that, or trying to project an image of our invincibility. Okay? So, here's a small group exercise, acknowledging needs. Which statements acknowledge needs without kind of tying it into a specific strategy? Okay? You irritate me when you leave company documents on the conference room floor. So for me, it's a clue is, once again, is yes, this you verb me. it then, it's like the responsibility is placed on the other person. I have a need for order in our company's space. And when I see documents on the floor, I feel unease. That's different. That's different. But to acknowledge one's need for order is the important part that sometimes we overlook or we don't communicate. The need is still there. And we try to get another person, though, in a particular strategy to meet that need. But when it is not articulated clearly, it's hard for another person to really know, like, what does this person need from me? Yeah. I feel angry when you say that because I am wanting respect. And I hear your words as an insult. Here, what do you think is the need here in this sentence?
Respect.
Respect, yes. So that's very clear. I want respect. And then, what is the feeling that this person acknowledges?
Angry.
Yeah, I feel angry. Anger. Yeah, that's definitely a feeling.
I mean, they're telling you anger.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
telling you anger.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then, but then I think this person goes one step further by then trying to help you understand. Because what I hear, I'm going to take responsibility for my interpretation of what I'm hearing. And that's the last part. I hear your words as an insult. It may not be an insult at all, but that's what I hear them to be. That's my interpretation, and I will take responsibility for that interpretation.
A lot of people, when I'm in a counseling situation, a lot of people will tell me, I feel angry. I feel this way.
Yes?
I feel. And I have to say, I hear this. What are we going to do about this? How are you going to handle this? What are you going to do?
Yes. Right. So what I'm hearing from you is that what you do is you try to reflect back their words so that their need to be heard their need to matter is met at that moment.
At that moment.
Because it's hard for a person to then take that next step in terms of what to do if they do not think you understand them.
We have to understand it. They can't take that next step unless I understand it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. So I feel frustrated when you came late.
Again,
Some-
you're putting the cause on you.
Yes.
And you did it.
Yes. 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 So, and now, kudos to the person for acknowledging the feeling of frustration. But the other person don't know what my needs are at this moment. Because that person is 10 minutes late, right? And so here I think feelings are clearly communicated, but there's this uncertainty about that person's human need, universal human need at this point. Okay? And then finally, I'm sad that you won't be coming for dinner because I was hoping that we could spend the evening together. I'm sad is the acknowledgement of one's feelings. Okay? That you won't be coming for dinner, is probably a reflection back of what that person is saying. I can't come to dinner tonight. And so there's no judgment, it's just a reflecting back of what that person will not be doing. And then the because is, I know something that I don't communicate as often. I don't then reveal, because sometimes I'm not even in touch with my own needs. But this person says, because I was hoping we could spend the evening together, reveals a need for companionship, a need for human connection. And that person was hoping that one viable strategy was for this other person to come and have dinner with me. That this strategy is not going to work out. And so, I'm sad. And that's totally normal. And then, if I were in this situation, then and if I had the awareness, I might think to myself, okay, yes, I have a need for companionship. So what other strategies, what other options do I have in order to meet that need? Because Susie or Beth will not be able to meet that need at this moment. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that acknowledgement of one's own needs, this universal human needs, that's all about us. That's not selfish, it's just being aware, it's being present, it's being mindful of this is what I need now. But it does not require anybody else or the universe to meet that need. It's just an acknowledgement of it. Okay.
But in order for you to have a mutual agreement or a better communication, you brought it to the surface.
Yes.
And the other partner, because if you don't communicate, they don't understand
Right.
what your feelings are.
Yes.
So there will be acknowledgement to the other person because you communicated.
Yes, yes. Because they cannot read your mind. And I've noticed that in so many ways, I don't have a clarity about what I truly need. And I'm just thrashing about, trying to get people to meet my needs. And no wonder they're frustrated with me. Because I'm unclear. How can I expect them to read not just my mind, but my heart.
Sometimes when a person is working with an abusive situation, I find that you've got to come up with a different strategy, like real quick,
Yeah,
very quickly,
right,
because they can't come up with it.
sure.
They don't have all they're thinking about is themselves, and they're so mad and angry, they can't come up with it. You've got
Right.
to come up with it.
Yes.
Now.
Yes. Yes. And maybe it's because we think about that Abraham Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Mhm.
Is that so? Yeah, they may have their nutritional and hydration needs met,
Mhm.
but at this moment, their need for safety is not, something has triggered them.
Mhm.
And so it is then trying to find a way to meet that level of need before being able to go to the next level, perhaps, in terms of then what next steps can you do then, right?
Right.
You see, if you don't feel safe, many times you either fight,
Right.
flight, or freeze. That's it. Those are the only three options most of the time. There aren't any other options.
They
And
can't
so,
find them.
yes, so what I'm hearing from you is if you're able to kind of connect with them, to understand, so that their need for safety is in some ways met, then that person's brain is able to be in contact with and connect with so many other options, other than the three that your basal ganglia is just telling you to do. Okay? All right. Any other questions? This is good. I like to have a conversation instead of just kind of me blabbing on.
Well, and communication is a two-way street.
Yes.
A speaker to receiver.
Yes.
It seems to me the advantage of that first sentence is you're giving them, the receiver, an option. You aren't backing them into a wall.
No.
And now you're giving them something they can think about to reply, which is, I'm sorry I'm not free tomorrow night. Tonight, what is tomorrow night?
Yes. Absolutely. I think that it opens the door up for, even though this is sad and there is no connection, but this sentence in and of itself opens the door for even a deeper connection, for other options that is not dependent on this particular constraint. Yes. And so both persons may at that moment walk away sad. That's a feeling, and those feelings will pass. But the emotional connection, I might just suggest that connection is even closer. So there is even a stronger motivation to get together at another time that suits both persons' schedules. That's kind of also what I'm hearing too. Yes.
A cynic might say that once you add the because I was hoping we could spend the evening together, that their strategy is to lay a guilt trip on the recipient.
Yeah.
That it's one thing to say I'm sad because you won't be coming to dinner. The extra because turns that into a strategy, not just to say how you're feeling, but to have the other not so subtle effect of make the other person feel guilty for not coming to dinner.
Yes. Thank you so much for bringing it up. Because I think that possibility can definitely, or that interpretation can definitely be kind of like surrounding the statement, right? And the way that one says this too can also, because I was hoping that, we could spend time together because, whatever, just that. I'm not even doing any other words, additional words. So once again, it's from one's heart. And we will then talk about the fourth point, which hopefully then can clarify and to reveal whether that was pure, purely is also like a judgment that might have been a somewhat, kind of a little bit of a guilt trip, or a little passive-aggressive kind of move, or if it is truly owning and taking responsibility for one's own thinking and one's own feeling. So hold on to that thought because we will get there. All right.
But it's not just about words either, it's your tone. I mean, you
Yes,
have to
tone,
be so
yes.
careful how you know.
Yes.
how you say- Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes. Bonnie.
Okay, I was just gonna say, but the other person who can't come to dinner this evening may have also felt possibly, maybe that person wasn't sure the person was really wanting them to dinner or not, and so then they get a more positive feeling, hey, that person really wanted to spend time with me.
Yes, it could be. So notice also, I just wanted to say, this isn't just like a, for this to work most beautifully, right? Hopefully is two people being able to observe without, evaluation, to be able to acknowledge one's own feelings without a lot of interpretive thoughts, to be able to acknowledge one's own universal needs while kind of letting go of one's own strategies. That can really work beautifully. And so we can't control how the other person may interpret this, even when we are at most peace with ourselves from our hearts. We just can't control that. And so there may be opportunities. I just noticed that I noticed you kind of squinched your face when I just said that. And here's the request. Would you be willing to tell me more about what you're thinking? And that's what we're going to get to in terms of the request. So that the ambiguity and the kinds of interpretations due to visual cues or audio cues, we then take the next step to hopefully clear the air. So then we can really touch base. That person can say, when you said that, I was feeling tense because I'm reminded, my mom tells me that all the time. But it's just her way to try to get you to do what she wants. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, oh, wow, this is about this person's mother. It has absolutely very little to do with me.
Well, it's also sort of an invitation to come back that way, is to say, and so is that what you're trying to do, or did you mean it's sort of the ball's back over the net to you now to clarify where you are coming from.
Exactly.
Because you could say, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Now that I've got your attention, let's, you could approach it.
Exactly. Yes, this is great, right? So to have even the questions here begins to clarify, some of the thinking that you may have, even as I'm presenting this. But hopefully, that in itself kind of models the kind of communication that we would like to have with one another. All right. So these are the four, and that's the handout. So it's for me, it's just pretty helpful reminder. Kind of, put it next to my desk or whatever. Okay, so whatever. Observations free of evaluation is what you see, hear, remember. To own up to one's feelings, free of kind of that interpretive thoughts. To acknowledge one's human universal needs at a particular moment, free of strategies to meet that need. And then finally, we have to go through those three before then we make a request that can enrich our lives. But it's free of demand. But those requests is present at this time, is doable. I would like for you a request that it would enrich my life if you jump off the roof of the building. Right? That's very doable. Okay, and not positive either, probably. Okay, yeah. So those things. All right. So let's talk about requests a little bit. A request is what we would like others to do in order to enrich life for us. So we ask for actions that might fulfill our needs. So in this situation about, the dinner plan gone awry, right? The fulfillment of our needs is a need for human companionship and community. And so, but in that particular example that Ed talked about, maybe the need at that moment is understanding. To understand whether, is this person hearing me correctly? Or is this person interpreting what I'm saying as a passive-aggressive move, as laying down a guilt trip, whatever it may be? And so the request is, in order to kind of meet my need for understanding, would you be willing, so that's a request, to, tell me more, explain, whatever. Also, for, because I have at this point, I was hoping that we might be able to spend time together, right? Okay. And if the other person still says, yeah, I understand. I'm just sorry that I can't do it now. You would know that it is not a guilt trip or a passive-aggressive move when the response is, thank you. I look forward to another time where we can get together. If the other person says, well, but I've been working for this for like months now, right? I've been looking forward to this for months now, and you know that my dog just died. You see what I'm saying? So that's not a request anymore, right? That is laying on a guilt trip. That is passive aggressive.
Yep.
But when the other person, see, that's what the free of demand is so important. So when I see the plate with crumbs and the milk carton, Wesley, I observe this, I'm feeling a little, frustrated, I have a need for order. Would you be willing to put the dish in the dishwasher and the milk carton in the refrigerator? And I don't know, I might have a strange son, but many times he may not do it exactly like that, but many times he'll do it. And I have to be able for him to say no. For him to know that this is a request. Then if he says no, then I might say, gosh, wow, I'm really curious I have a need for understanding. Would you be willing to tell me why? So here's the hypothetical, it hasn't happened. But he may say, I'm late for my soccer practice and I gotta leave now, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I may not still like it, but I have an understanding. But at the end of the day, right, that situation did not disconnect me from my son. We were able to, it's the maintaining of the human connection. And then I decide whether it meets my need to go and put the dish in the dishwasher and the carton. Or I might say, well, maybe what my son is trying to do is to build my own muscles in terms of my perception and definition of what order and neatness is. And I go from there.
I was gonna say his sister did it, but,
Yeah. My sister did it. She's in Richmond at VCU. She's got long arms. Yeah. So, to tell the difference between a request and a demand, the other person it's helpful that distinction is there, is to observe what the speaker does if the request is not complied with. And that is just an open door. That person can walk through it or not. But in so doing, many times you are able to maintain the connection and to be able to see that person, to treat that person, to relate to that person as a full human being with some autonomy and they can make choices. And so then, especially, in terms of the power dynamic, it could be a boss to a report, a father to a child. I think as my children grow up, I am very, very consciously trying to, instead of always have this hierarchical of power over my child, to work towards the power dynamic so that we relate to one another as human beings.
Before you get what you want from the other person, have you related what you expect from the other person?
Yes.
So that when the needs are not met, or you'll be demanding something of a better response.
Yes. Yes, yes. That's a great, great question. Yes. I think many times, in the workplace and in our family, it is very important to kind of have a group conversation in which, so there's clarity. So when I'm coaching a person, right, a business person, whatever, the contract, there's very clear in terms of what
The expectation.
the expectations, what they can expect from me, but conversely, what I expect from this possible client. And if that is not a good match, I would say, hallelujah, I'm so glad that we had clarity. I know of other coaches who could really be a good match for you. And let's do that, because I'm more interested in your success than in me getting a client. Because at the end of the day, possibly, our relationship may not turn out how we both hope. And would I want you to give me a bad Yelp review? Well, no. So yes, expectations at the get-go, very, very important. Thank you. Okay? So when the other person hears a demand from us, when they hear demand, right, they only see two options. What's not? They either submit and do what you want, and if that happens over and over and over again, guess what? There's feelings of anger and resentment, and then they may rebel, and you think, and we don't realize, aren't aware that we've contributed to those actions because that person is desperately trying to be his or her own person. But our constant demands in some way stimulated. Now, I'm not saying those are healthy kinds of things, right? But we can understand how it's like, when we're doing tug of war, we're pulling so hard. And sometimes the rope slips from my hand, and guess what? That person goes to the extreme on the other because of the emotional force that's there. But if I learn to just drop the rope, I've observed that many children don't kind of rebel in the traditional way. Because that energy to flee from one's parents is no longer there. They already have the freedom to explore and to choose, within boundaries. But that kind of antagonistic, reactive energy is not there. So when I counsel parents, this kind of really tricky dance, because try to raise the awareness that the parents also have some contribution, not a cause, but it, it stimulated something within the child, and the child's trying to tell us. Okay, so there it is. It's a demand if the speaker criticizes or judges, lays on a guilt trip. Those are signs that it's not truly a request. It is a demand. And it is a request if the speaker shows empathy towards the other person's need. I'm not able to come to dinner right now. And maybe that person's need is, a need for help because I'm so tired. It's not about you. I just need to go home and take a nap. Well, you have had a really long week. And I'm so glad you have clarity about that. So go home, get rest. Because then we can get back together and we'll paint the town red. Right? So that's a very different kind of energy. And so my request is not met. But I also then can think, what then other strategies, what other options that is available to me in order to meet my present need that my friend Esther's not able to meet. So, all right. So, and then to make sure the message that we send is a message that's received, we ask the listener to reflect it back. Would you be willing to tell me what you heard? What you just heard from me? And maybe sometimes, when I'm doing that in a coaching relationship, right? It's like, oh, no, that's not what I meant at all, right? So it's my lack of clarity there, not that person. May I try to state it differently and then ask you once again whether, So it's this kind of it's a new dance now that we're dancing. It's a different set of skills. And so, and then we express appreciation to the listener when the listener tries to meet your request for reflection. So it's not like interrogation. It's really out of a desire to truly connect. And so when somebody asks us, so can you say that again? I just want to make sure, right, that you're hearing me right. Oh, thank you for asking. Let me try to do that again. And empathize with the listener who does not want to reflect back. So that is also a request. Because sometimes that person could be stimulated by a trauma or whatever. I just can't talk about it now. Thank you. It's a signal for me to step back. So that person can have maybe that need for safety to be honored. When that happens, who knows? Several conversations down the road, we may be able to circle back, or may not. But at this point, what's most important is that need for safety. So, okay, I'm 5 minutes past. So that's it. I think next week we'll kind of do some. We'll have some more question and answer. We may do some sort of like a exercise, and I will have handout that has the notes to this presentation for the last 2 Sundays, so that you can take it home with you. Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any other kind of final questions or comments? Yes,
I wonder if it wouldn't be the Christian thing to do, starting with this church, to send you to Washington.
There are other people, thank you. There are so many other people who are kind of in this and who are much more skilled than I am. Like I said, I'm still kind of learning, and I'm so grateful that you have given me the opportunity to kind of reflect, to be able to kind of express my own journey, and because you have helped me in terms of my need for understanding and for mastery of this by having this venue. So thank you.